last week, they were completely rammed. They were filled up to the gunnels, they were queuing down the street. They said, you should have been here last week. I swear, you should have been here last week. Oh yeah, you should have been here last week.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of You Should Have Been Here Last Week, the podcast presented by myself, Steve Gribbin, and my fellow comedian, Paul Ricketts.
Did I echoes like?
You Should Have Been Here Last Week is the podcast that pulls back the velvet curtain to take a peek at the secrets, the foibles, the beautiful idiosyncrasies, the sheer bewildering, unbridled variety of the comedy industry. And we interview the foolers, the cool rulers, the controversy fuelers, and the grudge duellers that go to make up this biz that we call show. And today's guest on our podcast is writer, TV star, podcaster, YouTuber, games lover, activist, Instagrammer, and brilliant stand-up comedian, Imran Yusuf. Welcome to the show, Imran.
Oh, thank you for such a wonderful introduction, Steve. I really appreciate that.
So you did start comedy. I think it was...
around the same time as you, I think, no?
Yeah, but you came back to it, didn't you? So why did you take a break before you came back?
That break, I was going through a depression, and just my mind was filled with my problems. And I realized that I needed to step away from it because I was still new in comedy, but things were like moving. And I thought, I can't do this all. So I thought, let me just stop the comedy for now, sort my problems out, and then come back when I come back. And I was away about a year and a half, I think. And in that time, the big thing was I went out on pilgrimage. I did an extended pilgrimage. I went to Jerusalem first because that was a good idea. And then took a bus from into Jordan, so then I could then fly from Jordan to Saudi Arabia and do Mecca and Medina. I had to get that out of my system. I had to confront the realities of what does religion mean? How is it part of my identity? What part do I play in it? What part does it play in my life? It was a real big deal for me. So I had to get that out of my system. Spent about 5 weeks in the Middle East, praying every day in the mosque every day, reading Quran every day. And then I came back and got a job back in the games industry again. And, like my first life.
Love that hat.
Yeah, absolutely. I wear this every day at home.
So for the listeners, I will point out that Imran has a Mario hat on.
Right. And when I came back, I got a job working in the video games industry. And we were working with Nintendo of Japan directly. So we were in London, they're in Japan, and it was, what an honor, but it was very hard, man. It was really, really hard. And whilst I was doing that, I was like, well, I need to get back to comedy at some point. But the job, we were doing unpaid overtime for a long time. It just went on. And I got to a point where I realized if I don't go back to comedy now, I never will. There is no I'll do it when it's more convenient. There was just this moment of clarity of whatever you can do it now. And so I made the phone calls. People like Alex Petty remembered me. Mike Manera remembered me. They gave me some spots. I did the Gong Show at the Comedy Store. And then when I came back, I gave it everything. And that's when I think you and I, became friends, or we saw each other a lot more, is when I made that comeback in 2007.
Yeah. But you had a absolutely tight 10. That's the first thing I remember about you, that
Yes.
Your 10 was absolutely perfect.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Well, you know what? And I learned, because I wasn't very good. For my first year, I wasn't very good. And then I went, you know what? Just build your set minute by minute, word by word, syllable by syllable, no fat on your act. Just make it great. Make everything count, every sound count. And when I applied that discipline, I rapidly got better.
I mean, we should explain to the non-comedian civilians, as it were, what a tight 10 means. Because they might be wondering.
It's not a naive, young, hot model. I wish it was. I wish I did have a tight 10 in those days. But instead, I opted for a very strongly worded, perfectly articulated 10 minutes of comedy.
Yeah, because I remember me and you having a conversation, and you were building your second 10 to go on the first 10.
Yeah.
And because your first 10 was the speed of the delivery, and also, I suppose, I'm not saying that you've changed the way you speak. I don't think you have, but it was slightly more Hackney than it is now.
Well, yeah, I was using. It wasn't a character act, but I was deliberately kind of acting. I was doing this hyped up rude boy, like, you know, the kind of the way that we, you know, maybe we acted a little bit in high school. Because I felt that was it was a bit of a crutch. I think it was, I could act up and be a bit silly in front of the audience, and it looked weird because I would dress in a shirt and trousers and shoes, and I was coming out going, yo, what's up? Listen, yeah, I just come back from America, yeah. They start hauling me into immigration, start asking me questions, yeah. So it just, and people were like going, why is this, you know, Asian city banker talking from, you know, some rough estate? And then slowly, it just petered out when I learnt to be me on stage.
I mean, do you remember your contemporaries from that time? So the second comeback, who are the people that really stick out in your mind?
I just gigged with Joe Bohr the other day. So we were all in. I think we were. Do you remember Hills Jago? We were one of Hills' Angels. We were one of the few, because I did the Muse course. Because I didn't remember, like, I had no idea where stand-up comedy really happened. I didn't realize you had to go to pubs. And pubs were where the open mic circuit was, because I don't drink, I don't go in pubs, and so I didn't know that's where it was. And then suddenly I do the Muse course, like, oh, you have to go perform in pubs, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. That's going to be, like, you know, quite difficult for me. But then realize that it's okay. You know, most pubs are just really kind of welcoming places where you can sit down, just chill out, and, you know, and then do comedy as well. So, but yeah, there's quite a few. I started out, though, the first time round, I started out exactly the same week, if I remember correctly, as Russell Kane. And he was incredible on day one. Day one, he was incredible just on day one. And I remember looking at him going, well, if he's that good now, and then I haven't got a chance if I'm not already that good, not realizing that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And he is innately talented. He is incredible. But I remember him just smashing it everywhere. And in fact, so he won, like, what did he win? He won the Laughing Horse that year. He won something else, whatever. And then what happened, I ended up in the final of the Newbury New Act of the Year competition, 2004. And Russell Kane was in the final. And we're like, well, he's going to win it. But for some reason, something happened. He had an emergency and he couldn't make it. And the moment we got that news, we all looked around going, well, one of us could win it now. Because he was that good, and he still is. He's an incredible comedian.
Oh yeah.
And then I went on to win it, and that helped. That really, you know, suddenly your name has jumped up the kind of pecking order of importance in Time Out. When that was relevant.
Not to mention Newbury. Are you still big in Newbury?
I can't go there. Just get mobbed left, right, and centre. Yeah.
So you lost that voice. I remember having a conversation with you about getting the second 10 to get the 20.
Yes.
I don't know why you were expecting any wise advice from me, because I remember at one point you said, well, how do I get the 20? I said, well, do the first 10 slower.
You were one of the supportive, you know, like in those open mic days, there was a bunch of us that were like, we saw each other a lot. Me, you, Pat Bersher, Yariv, Perelmuter. We'd see each other and we were all supported each other in which, you know, whatever we were doing, because we were all real comedy fans. And I think I love that. I was around other people who are passionate about comedy and talked about the writing, talked about the ideas and, you know, and what we wanted to do. So, they were good, man. Like, I think we had a good camaraderie.
Yeah, it wasn't competitive, which I can sort of see that now. In my little times, I dipped my toe into the open spot circuit. I went to one the other day just out of interest. And there is competition going on there instead of people really supporting each other.
Right, yeah. I think the market has expanded. You can get famous a lot quicker these days because of social media. And that's a real pull. That's a real, like, oh, we want this. You know, we want to have this. There'll always be that. There'll always be human beings who will, you know, stab you in the back to kind of, or, you know, exploit you to get what they want. And we had that in our time, but we were just fortunate that we had the Laughing Horse. I mean, you know, Steve is from the next, you know, he was the whole level up, and we were, you know, I'll get back. I need to tell you some stuff, Steve. I mean, I probably already told you, but, you know, we had a great camaraderie, but, you know, Steve Gribbin was at the Comedy Store, man. He was part of the head. That was like, so we were like, we want to get there, you know. And I remember the first time I gigged with Steve, it was a little bit like, oh my God, Steve Gribbin. Right? It was at what is it called? Hellfire, the one in Wickham, High Wycombe.
The Hellfire Club in Wickham. That's right. Yeah.
So that's the first time, and I was like, because when you remember, Paul, when you got a break with proper comedians, when you got like a spot amongst proper bona fide comedians, you'd Google them and go, who is this person, and you'd learn about them, and that's how I met like Steve, Martin Coyote, Steve Gribbin. I remember when I first met Steve, I did my homework. Because remember, back then, the Comedy Store had a separate section on a website about the cutting edge, right? It was a dedicated page to the cutting edge. And Steve was on it. And I was like, oh, my God, they're part of this special show. It's a weekly topical show, and they're part of that team. Oh, man, how would I do that? And I asked Steve, I was like, Steve, I see that you're part of the cutting edge. Like, what do I need to do to, like, get on a show like that? Like, what do I need to do? And then what was quite nice is that not all of the, people of your level were always nice to us. You were one of the few people who like you helped new people. Not all of the established comics gave a shit. Like the amount of times I've been in the green room at the Comedy Store when I was an open spot and just got ignored. I didn't exist. I know. Right? And people like yourself, people like Adam Bloom, people like in fact, it's because of you and Martin Coyote specifically that I got in at the edge. So thank you for that, because that really helped me massively. And you true socialist, you help. You got a slice of the pie and you shared it with others.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should bring up the social media thing, because we both are very, very interested in talking to you about this, because we ask a lot of people about it. It's a very important part of the business now. But we specifically wanted to ask you about using Chat GPT, because I know that you and I have had some writing sessions. We talked about it. I mean, could you sort of give us an idea? How do you go about using Chat GPT to help you write stuff?
I've only once use ChatGPT to be of any use. So first and foremost, ChatGPT cannot write jokes. It is shit.
Yeah.
Well, we know.
Right? It is shit. However, saying that, I did use ChatGPT. I figured this out. Instead of me having to read multiple news articles to be able to construct a joke, I went, look at this subject in this news article and tell me what the key themes and words are, right? Yeah, and then it listed, here are the key themes and words. And because I used it to write a couple of gags about the post office scandal. Yeah. And so I went, what are the key themes and words from this subject? And I went, here are the key themes. And then I came up with a joke. I came up with a bunch of jokes. They're not great. They would have been great for the edge of like very topical of like, I've taken up martial arts, by the way. When I was a kid, I did ninjutsu, which is the art of like assassination. Then I took up jujitsu, which is, grappling and rolling around the floor. But lately I've taken up fujitsu, which is the art of fucking over 900 people who work for the post office. And it's so effective. It doesn't matter how much evidence that they have, the jury can't see over the horizon.
Yeah, very good. Yeah,
right, and it doesn't matter, and it just goes to show that if you work, there are checks and balances when you work for the post office. You can't mess about with the Royal Mail. However, if you are a Royal Mail, well, you can mess about with some kids and mummy will pay it off. I'm glad you laughed at that. It's but ChatGPT didn't write that. It just went, here are the key themes and words, and that allowed me to then focus on the bits that I needed to use, the keywords. That's it. So that's all I would recommend it for. That's all I'd recommend it for.
That's another question. Do you think that people will, or are people already using it a lot? ChatGPT.
Looking around, like when I go to. I think, comedy, there's a lot of comedians now. There's a lot of new people I go to a new material night locally to where I am. And I think it didn't become apparent to me when I was younger, but now I realize there's a lot of people who are clearly just need therapy. They really need to go and speak to that. They need to, don't get on stage. You're getting in the way and blocking other people from doing it. And then there are young people who've got fresh energy, got great ideas and good discipline. Right. And I'm like, man, that was well written. That was well thought out. That was really good. I really admired that. They don't mess about. So I think probably, I think ChatGPT, I don't know if they're using ChatGPT to tell jokes. I mean, because they're just getting up and rambling and, trying to be edgy and, not actually telling jokes. there's a bit of that going on.
I was going to say, you always were a man with a plan.
When you're young, plans sound like good ideas, and to some degree they work. I plan to go to the supermarket and buy these items. You turn up, you buy the items. There might be something there you didn't intend buying, but you buy it anyway. There might, the stuff that you're looking for might not be there, but you can get. But then when you make grand plans of like, this is what I want to do with my life and career, God laughs. And that, just as things seem to be taking off for me, the moment I moved out, and I was making good money and my career was just on fire, my mum had a stroke. And so I was back. That's it. I'm coming back home and I'm taking care of my mum, and I'm still here now. That was 2012, right? So I've learned that, plans are useful, but you've got to learn to roll with the punches that life deals you.
Yeah, but I was meaning more about you'd be self-critical. And so I remember we had a conversation where you were going, I need to be looser and less scripted. And you were asking, well, how do you think I should do it? And I think I must have been one of many people who said to you, start MCing, because you've been forced to do it. And the next thing I know, you just went off and did it.
Well, I had no interest in MCing. I never looked upon an MC and went, oh, that's really cool and I want to do it. I just went, no, I want to be the star. I want to be the comedian. Like, I want to be the guy doing 20 minutes and I want to be the best at it. And then, so no interest. And so this is, all right, I want to tell you like the long story of this if that's all right.
Go ahead.
Friend, our mutual peer, because, remember, Steve is up there, right? He's up there.
I'm actually literally up there.
Yeah, he's literally up there. He's up there. In his painting. So our Joseph Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Joseph Wilson's a mate of mine. We started out, because me, you, and him all started around the same time. So Joseph Wilson, we were up in Edinburgh Festival, and he was in the final of the Chortle Student Comedy Final, the one that the guy from the In-Betweeners like placed in. He didn't win it, but like it's the one that he did before he became like a TV star. So I went to support Joseph. I just went, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to support my man, right? My boy, my friend. So I'm sitting there, and the compere comes out, and I don't know who this guy is. His name's Stephen Grant. And I was blown away. I remember just going, oh my God, what is going on? I have never seen anything like this. He just made comparing look like this genius, amazing piece of work. I was blown away at how quick he was, how inventive he was. The energy was just up here the whole time. And I was totally inspired. And so after the show, I remember walking out. It's about past midnight in Edinburgh. It's cold. And I've walked out, and I remember this thought just went, I'm going to learn to compare, and I'm going to become as good as Stephen Grant. I remember just thinking that. And so I just, that saying, if you take a step towards God, God takes 10 steps towards you. Have you heard that saying, something like that? Or you got to move first, and then the universe moves with you. Something like that.
Yeah.
So that thought popped in my head, and it came from passion. It came from inspiration after just seeing the genius of Stephen Grant. And I went, right, I've got to learn to compare. How am I going to do it? And I spoke to Alex Petty, because I had a good relationship. Well, we had a good relationship with Alex Petty at the Laughing Horse. I went, Alex, can I give me a room to run in London? And fortunately, Sean James and Lewis Bryan were basically had come to the end of their tenure with the Camden Room. And so Alex gave it to me and Helen Huscroft. And so for a year, I had a room to MC in. And you know what? I didn't really use it. I was terrified. I was so self-conscious of MCing and being rubbish that I barely used that opportunity. In fact, what I did is I got Helen to MC, and I would come in and do like 10 minutes or just do new material in between or something like that. And then the following year, I went up to Edinburgh and I went, right, Alex, give me a room to compare for the whole month. Give me a Laughing Horse gig, a mixed bill gig, and my responsibility is just to MC it. So he gave me that. He gave me the Hive, on that, is it Nidri Street, the one on that bit? He gave me that, and so every day I'm comparing at the Edinburgh Festival. That I've come to learn that I used Edinburgh as a gym. It was never a thing for me. I'm going to go there and get famous. I was like, I can go up there and just do loads of gigs and just become, just go to the gym. You're at the gym every day, and I did that for a month, and then when I came back, it showed, and then long story short, now one day I'm at the cutting edge. Thanks to Steve, thanks to Martin Coyote, and Stephen Grant's on the bill, and I'm MCing, right? I tell Steve, I'm really like, hey man, this is a big deal for me. I'm now doing the job because I'm inspired by you. And I went on stage and I'm comparing the first section of The Cutting Edge, and I'm taking the piss out of people in the front row, messing about with them. And Stephen Grant's watching me. And later he comes up to me and goes, hey, Imran, watching you was scary. And I was like, why is that? He goes, because the words that were coming out of your mouth as you were talking to people in the audience and taking the piss out of them were the thoughts that I was thinking. And I was like, oh my God, what praise. What praise, man, from the guy. And he still is, like, hands down. Stephen Grant is just the best of the best. And the fact that he gave me any praise made me go, I did good.
Laughing Horse and the Free Fringe.
Yeah.
So that's
Free Festival. Free Festival.
Oh God, yeah, of course. I'll get sued by PBH. But that's important in your development, isn't it? I mean, to the point.
Oh, massively.
Was it in? I think it's 2010 or 2011 when you get nominated.
2010. I got nominated 2010.
Yeah.
And the Laughing Horse, like I'm from that's my Shaolin temple. The Laughing Horse was the dojo, in London and in Edinburgh. And do you remember you and I, Paul, we were lucky because we were the last wave of comedians who could gig every night of the week on the open mic circuit, because the Laughing Horse had a gig every night of the week, sometimes two. I could double on. I figured out how to double and triple on Mondays and Tuesdays on the open mic circuit because it was there. And then as soon as I went professional and started making money, all of that just collapsed because the Lehman Brothers crash that happened in 2008.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Shortly after that economic crash, the open mic circuit the club started to implode, but there were loads of still comedians. There were loads of new people coming through, and then the abhorrent manifestation that is pay to play arrived in Britain. And culturally in this country, generally British comedy culture is like, no, this is that should never be the case. That's an American thing. Don't bring that shit here. But unfortunately, it came about.
Yeah, and then it's the start of Bringers, wasn't it? Really?
Bringers.
Yeah, the start of Bringers. That's a North American thing. We don't do that here, but unfortunately, it happened.
But that goes to the nub of what we're always talking about with the promoters and everything, and saying that you have to even charge a nominal amount, because if you let people in for nothing, there is absolutely no respect for it.
Yeah.
That's why gigs in corners of the pub where they pull a curtain over the other bar, they never work. They never ever work because people just go, "This is my pub," or
You're talking luxury when you mention the curtain. I mean, it's just, I mean, God's sake, I'm seeing plenty of gigs I've done. I would have prayed for a curtain, but you're just stuck in the corner of the pub with the telly still on, with football on.
Oh my God!
Yeah. And the amount of times as well, I did one in St. Helens once, and the landlord had all the fruit machines and the telly on, and we said to him, "Can you turn the television and the fruit machines off during the gig?" He went, "No."
Yeah, there needs to be basically a minimum level of this is what it takes to run a gig. Like I've been to open mic nights where it's because if you're an established comedian, when you walk, sometimes open micers who are new, they'll recognize you and be like, "Oh, you're an important person to talk to. You can give me information or might recommend me for stuff." So when I go there's an open mic here in Harrow where I live. It's every Tuesday, and so I go in there, and sometimes guys, that people come up to me and ask me for advice, and sometimes I'll see someone good, and then I'll recommend them. And then I think some of the other open micers see like, "Oh my God, why is that guy talking to that guy? I need to go talk to that guy." And, so I try to be very discreet. I'm like, "Hey, look, you're really good, and make sure you do this and make sure you do that." Because I'm only learning this now. I'm able to look at a new comedian coming through, and sometimes it's clear this person has talent and they can go the distance. But then it's not always clear. It wasn't clear with me. I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but there are people now that I knew that were rubbish for 15 years, and now they're on television all the time. They persevered, and it wasn't clear that they were ever going to become any good or successful.
I mean, the first time I ever saw Kevin Bridges, exactly the same as you said. It was like he was dropped from an alien pod and just landed. It was like, he was Kevin Bridges. It was just brilliant. I mean, it's just like he sort of dropped, and he was immediately, even though he was about 17, he was like 45 years old and just doing stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah, Sean Walsh with me. Sean Walsh was just his first gig in London. was just round the corner from where I lived in London Bridge, and I just thought I'd just pop in. And he just turned up. He was fully formed. It was
Wow.
it was just like, and I remember going up to him and saying that, I said, "How long have you been doing this?" He goes, "Well, this is my first gig in London." I said, "Well, move to London. You're ready now."
Wow. Wow. I wish I wanted someone to say that about me, but I had to earn my stripes. I had to earn my stripes. I had to be shit until I got good.
You were good at the start.
I had a lot of energy, and I was relatively charming, smiley, all of that, but I had no discipline. I had no technique. I had no craft. I was the classic, I'm funny with my mates. Oh, I think I can do this. I could be funny in front of a room full of strangers, not realizing it's a totally different thing. But yeah, I'm not like the Sean Walshes. I'm not like the Russell Kanes. I'm not like the Matt Welcomes and the Rona Camerons or the Kevin Bridges. But I wanted to be, but at least I got this far, and so I've earned my way. But the people who are fully formed, that's a blessing. It's from the divine.
The question I was going to ask, right, because you spent some time in America, do you remember going to see any American comedy, and did that sort of inspire you?
I lived in the States when I was 12, 13 years old. So I wouldn't have gone to like comedy clubs or anything. But
did you see any stuff on TV and stuff though?
Oh yeah, sure. I think in my teens when I discovered Chris Rock, I remember watching Eddie Murphy Raw and Eddie Murphy Delirious, and some of that now you're not going to get away with at all.
No.
Remember, Eddie Murphy is unbelievably charming, an unbelievable performer, like naturally gifted. And I watched Raw and Delirious, and I think people like Chris Rock, people like Eddie Murphy gave me an insight, because America it seemed to be ahead of us, especially in racial comedies, in approaching racism and racial dynamics. So that was an insight of like, oh, I could also talk about my experience and how the stuff that I have to deal with. Even though it wasn't really. But growing up in Hackney Downs, the 80s and 90s in London, in this country, were actually pretty good for me.
Yeah,
were pretty good. Like it wasn't what Chris Rock went through. It's not what Richard Pryor went through at all. It was actually it's one of the things London really got right, I think. So that had a big impact.
But there's a great story about Chris Rock, and the bouncer guys told me that he came down and he had like an entourage. You know this story, and he did the first set, and it was okay. He went away, and about an hour and a half later came back to do the Late Show, and he'd worked on that set, and just went.
Yeah, when he'd start to become an international star. And he had like a team of writers. He came with a whole entourage. And that's something that blows my mind. When I see, when comedians get big and you suddenly have an entourage, I'm like, come on, man. Come on, dude. It's not why we get, that's not being a comic. You don't need 20 people. Shut up. Get up on stage, say your words, and then fuck off. Right? You don't need to. I've seen, I'm not going to mention who it was, but a very famous Hollywood star came to the Comedy Store. He went on stage. People went berserk. Someone off the television in America is at the Comedy Store on stage. They went berserk for, and then he did, what did he do? I think he did like 2 minutes and he left. He was given 10 minutes. Like he was like, oh, you can do, he did like 2. And because once the whole, oh my God, you're famous had worn off. Yeah, it became very apparent that he didn't have any material. And totally gifted actor, totally gifted performer. But the thing about comedy is, remember, none of us are above our craft. And if you don't put the time in, you cannot be match fit. And in fact, right now, at this moment, as I'm talking to you, I'm not match fit. The last couple of gigs that I've done, like I've realized, oh, hold on, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm a bit like, it's like learning to ride a bike again. It only takes a couple of weeks to lose the muscle memory, to start for the muscle memory to diminish. And that's why you got to stay on top of it and gig, regularly all the time. Yeah. And I think, and it'll only take me like a weekend to get it back, but it's, it just shows you can slip away from you.
It's similar to what happened after COVID when we all came back. And we think, well, how long does it take me to forget me set? About 18 months would do it. And about the amount of times you saw people in the middle of a routine suddenly go, they pause and then they just look at the audience and go, and what's your name?
Yeah.
And everyone at the back would go, yeah, he's forgot his set, hasn't he? He's forgot his set.
Yeah, I was quite lucky because I would watch video. I think I had a bunch of videos on my set, so I would just leave it on in the background and remember all the rhythms. Remember, oh, that bit there, that bit there. And also, do you remember during lockdown there was a little window of, okay, you can go out to some degree again.
Yeah.
You can go back out. And one of the clubs was allowed to open its door. And what they do, they put these perspex shields between the rows. But all that did is that if someone sneezed, it would just go sideways and get everyone. So we're all performing to people in front of, and they've got these hanging perspex like shields down between every row. And so I was able to kind of ride the bike of stand up again for this little window. So fortunately it wasn't too bad for me. But yeah, even now I realize none of us are ever above our craft, and you must always, practice and hone your stuff. And whenever I see, sometimes you see new young comedians who they've got that passion, they've got that naive energy, and they put something, and you're like, wow, man, I remember what that felt like, and I'm so glad they're doing it because they're doing a service to the craft. They're doing something good for the circuit. It's good for everyone when a good stand-up puts real effort into being a better stand-up.
So who are your favourite British comedians then?
Terry Alderton. Terry Alderton is the king of silly.
Yeah.
Right, or the queen of silly, or the non-binary specific royalty of silly. The silliness is it's so pure. It's falling over, doing silly voices, acting like an idiot, acting like a petulant teenager on stage. It's so pure, and it reminds us that's what it's about. Because I love getting on my high horse about this is my social justice cause. I love Mark Thomas and like the Jeremy Hardy, God rest his soul. That they spoke truth to power, but silly stuff. So the first time I met, I'm a massive fan of Red Dwarf, which I think is the best comedy in the world ever, right? And when I met Rob Grant, I remember meeting him, and in my head I was going, Don't start quoting Red Dwarf. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. You've heard it enough. Don't do it. And then I couldn't stop myself. I just went off like a Catherine wheel, just quoting the shit out of Red Dwarf. And bless him, he was really cool, and he just he tolerated it, right? Because he's heard it a billion times. Well, dude, like Red Dwarf, those classic, back in the 90s, it was just it's silly. It's so silly. And what looking back at it, I think if it was, imagine it didn't exist and you made it now, it would be quite, they're trying to be woke. Look what they're trying to do. Whereas it didn't matter. You didn't think of Lister and Kat as being, they were just other humans, right? And the odd ones out, the Mechanoid and Rimmer, are like the kind of the ones that get punched down on. There was no element of, this is, they've had to put this person, they've had to put that. It was just funny because it was so silly. I met Danny John Jules in real life maybe a year ago, I think. That guy is intense. Like he does not mess about. He does not mess about. Like it was incredible to meet him, but he is not a mess about person.
And of course both Hollies were stand-up comedians, weren't they?
Hattie Hayridge, who I met her. I was walking behind her one very late night in Edinburgh with Papa CJ, and I recognised her. And it's dark; it's like pitch black, like midnight. And I went, Hattie Hayridge, and she shit herself. Yes, and I went, oh, I'm just a big fan. I'm sorry. And I ran away. And then I met her at the Comedy Store. She's like, hi, I'm Hattie. I'm like, I know who you are. Like you're one of the biggest deals in British comedy that ever happened. Yeah, Red Dwarf. Those American comedy definitely inspired me. I thought in certain subjects they're ahead of the game, but craft-wise, Britain, London is where you come to get good. America is where you go to get famous, I think, generally. One of our peers, Paul Ricketts, Pat Bersher, is doing really well.
You see? Oh, brilliant.
He is. Look up Pat Bersher on social media. He has found everything. Like all the stars have aligned for him. Like in his craft. You remember how he never had material. He just had stream of consciousness, observational nonsense. We all saw potential in it. Yeah. But now it just works 100% of the time. And he's pretty big in America. Like he's doing really, really well.
Oh God, I've got to check this out because I used to do terrible things to him before he'd go on, I'd think, what's the most ridiculous thing I could whisper in Pat's ear before? And I go, oh, cherry blossom boot polish. Yeah, my mum used to love it. And then the next thing you know, he'd go out and say, so what about this cherry blossom boot polish?
What's the future, do you think, of comedy?
I think the comedy market is going to expand. It is expanding, and not just in one dimension. So, for example, my friend has opened a cafe in Whitechapel called Kismet Cafe. So it's an Islamic art gallery, cafe, and performance space. And so we've started putting comedy there, but we're curating it because the majority of the audience are British Muslims who come from South Asian, which is Pakistani, Indian, Bengali, whatever, Muslims, and Turkish, Bosnian, whatever. And so we're putting in comedy there, but it doesn't have to be clean. It has to be relatively clean, right? So because there are lots of people it's just like, Paul, there's a black comedy circuit, right? Mm. And there is the mainstream circuit, the white circuit, which it's not really a white circuit. It's just the mainstream circuit. But there's also a black circuit, and both things can exist. And there are some people who can cross over and play both or play all. And some people are like, no, they're just here, or they're just here. Like even in the mainstream circuit, there are some comedians who are very provincial. They'll only work up north, or they'll only work down south, whatever. So I think comedy is going to expand into there'll be different cultural markets that will cross over to some degree and won't cross over to some degree. There's lots of young people bringing fresh new energy, fresh new ideas, and with it, a lot of shit as well. A lot of, where are you from? That's a bit shit. I'm a comedian, right? I'm not being different. Right? I've got 20 million followers on Instagram for doing shit, uninspired crowd work, right? I'm not bitter, right? It's going to expand, and at the same time, then it will contract. There'll be a lot of shit, and then there'll be a culling, but it will expand into. And I think the more broader you can be. So at this Kismet Cafe, I've got Steph Paolini's doing it, right?
Wow.
He's quite broad, and like I think I could bring him into that space, and they'll like him because he's got the accents, he's got the whatever, and just trying to experiment of like, who can we, what outsiders, if you like, can we bring into this space? Because unfortunately, what happens in our multicultural society, which is great, it's not perfect, but it is great. There are some people who don't want to venture outside. Like for me, like I wasn't going to go into a pub because that's where alcohol is, and that's against my religion. So therefore I can't go there. But then I discovered that I can actually go into a pub, be welcomed, and I don't have to drink, and no one's going to force it upon me, and no one's going to be mean and throw me out. And so I've come into that space going, all right, I can do this. So we should have that. We shouldn't build walls, but we should build spaces and allow people to kind of go, oh, do you want to come and do this? And you might work there.
That's one of the most interesting answers we've had, because a lot of people have sort of gone on the sort of the technological route, but you're talking about different, as you say, different circuits, sort of like coalescing or meshing together or whatever. That's a really interesting concept.
There's a space for everyone. Like even it's quite funny. My dad sent me clips of comedians that I know on WhatsApp. Like he's going, look at this. This is really funny. Right? He's not sharing my shit. So he sent me material from Jinx Yeo.
I know him.
Some material that Jinx did. He sent me material that Daniel Fernandez has done. And I'm like, these are my mates. In fact, I helped them both. These guys were open spots, right? And I helped them both. And my dad's like, this is really funny. I'm like, oh, you think so, do you? So there's also an expansion. There'll be some people who will never go out to live events. That's the other one. Some people, for whatever reason, it could be some form of social anxiety. It could be physical disability. They're never going to go to a comedy club, but they will watch comedy on their phone, on their tablet, whatever. And so there's a market for that. So I think it's going to expand, and there's just going to be smaller kingdoms of different things going on.
Yeah.
And if you can cross over and play, different places, do it. I think it's really, really good.
Well, that was brilliant, Imran. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, man.
Great,
well,
man.
Yeah, I
Very
think
interesting.
Thanks for inviting me, guys, and also thank you in both of you supporting me in my journey. Paul, you were there when I was new, and we were on the open mic circuit together in the Laughing Horse days. You were always someone who was supportive, and it was a good energy to be around, because there's very little of that really in what then ends up being very competitive. And Steve, you were that level up. I was looking up, going, Steve Gribbin from the Comedy Store does the Cutting Edge, and then you and yourself, legendary history in your time in stand-up. The amount of times I would be ignored or spoken to like I was just this piece of shit that was in the way. Like, I was like, oh my, I thought comedy was a fun, happy, we make make people laugh. But the fact that you took the time to write me an email, tell me what you did, and like how I could prepare myself is massively helpful, and thank you. And that's the way it should be. When we see new people coming through and they're making the effort to be good, we should help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you, both of you, for being supportive in your respective ways.
Oh, we were just moaning together. That's all we were doing, Imran. So that was Imran Yusuf. We did start off at the same time, and we helped each other through the journey until he went past me. Then I waved from afar. Remember me, Imran? You remember me? Yeah. And he always did, actually. He always did.
He always did, yeah.
If you've enjoyed this fantastic podcast with Imran, then once again, tell all the people you know, and like, subscribe, share, and what else could you do? What else?
Disseminate.
I think create a video game called "It Should Have Been Here Last Week."
Yes,
which sounds like some sort of really bad parcel service, but
or indeed just the regular parcel service.
Yes, indeed, it's like every, isn't it? I mean, they're all crap, aren't they? They're all crap.
They're rebranding, aren't they? They call themselves something. Anyway, sorry, I've interrupted.
You interrupted because they were rebranded because they were Hermes before. Then they became Every, and then now everyone's thinking they're shit, and they're going to rebrand to something else.
Well, they're going to rebrand us. All right, it's us. For fuck's sake, everyone knows we're shit. .co.uk.
Parcels if you're lucky. That's what they should.
Behindthebins.co.uk.
Until next time, then, we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye.